Last month, I talked about one theme park from every state in Australia that no longer exists today. Thanks to your comments and the wonderful folks in my Discord and the Facebook group Lost Amusement Parks of Australia, which you should all check out, I found 5 more parks to talk about in depth on the channel. These are 5 more parks from around Australia that have disappeared for various reasons, and some of them might bring back some memories for viewers who are lucky enough to visit them while they were open. Without further ado, let's dive right into the video and reminisce on the Aussie theme parks of the past. White City in Perth, Western Australia. The Elizabeth Quay foreshore in Western Australia's capital was once home to an amusement park with some of the wildest and most fascinating folklore of any park in Australian history. Perth's White City, also known as Cooey City or Ugly Land, opened in the modern-day Supreme Court Gardens during World War I. However, these gardens were often used for other purposes, and the rides would have to be frequently taken down to make room, so the park moved to a permanent site at the foot of William Street in 1922. It was at this time that the park picked up its Ugly Land nickname, as a fundraising organisation called the Ugly Men's Association began to manage the site and organise events for charity. The Ugly Men were a major cultural force in early 20th century Perth, organising social events to raise funds for various charities such as the Red Cross, the Perth Children's Hospital, and the War Patriotic Fund. They used White City to host their Ugly Land carnivals, which became highly anticipated annual events among Perth's working classes. Events at the park would include dances, concerts, wood shopping, various rides such as Ferris wheels and a chaeroplane, goat races, and of course, Ugly Man competitions. However, the park was not without its darker underbelly. Accidents were very frequent at the park. One newspaper article describes a man being hospitalised while trying to board the chaeroplane ride while it was still in motion. But even more concerning were the snake charmers. A popular attraction at the park, snake charmers performed an act that both entertained and demonstrated various species of Australian snake. But evidently, the charmers were not entirely in control of their acts at all times. In 1928, a female snake charmer was hospitalised after being bitten by her own tiger snake. By 1929, after several snake-related hospitalisations and deaths, the State Gardens Board banned White City from having any snakes on the premises. It was these accidents that would prompt calls to close down White City. However, there were more sinister and saddening reasons as well. One of these reasons was A.O. Neville, the notorious public servant who was appointed to the position of Chief Protector of Aborigines in Western Australia in the 1920s. Neville was largely responsible for policies relating to Australia's stolen generations and the severe oppression of Indigenous people in Western Australia. Neville reported that boxing matches being held as social events at the park were resulting in, quote, black men beating white men in boxing contests on the doorstep of the city and being watched by black women. These types of reports, as well as rumours of underground gambling and larrikin behaviour at the park, caused moral outrage among the well-to-do upper classes of Perth, and the newly established Town Planning Commission called on several occasions for the park's demolition. Eventually, the objectors won out, and in 1929 the fun fair was closed down. The land was handed over to the WA Housewives Association, who, in fairness to them, used the land to open a soup kitchen for the unemployed during the Great Depression and were responsible for feeding up to 300 unemployed and homeless men every day. However, it is undoubtedly saddening that racist and elitist policymakers were ultimately responsible for the closure of Perth's first ever amusement park. Today, the land is occupied by the Elizabeth Quay bus and train station. Paradise Gardens in Cattai, New South Wales. Paradise Gardens was a prehistoric themed amusement park located on the banks of the Hawkesbury River to Sydney's north. Located alongside the river at Cattai between Wiseman's Ferry and Windsor, the park opened in 1976 and consisted largely of attractions based around their large concrete dinosaur sculptures, which featured speakers hidden in the grass to emit prehistoric sounds. These sculptures were imported from Britain for the park and scattered throughout the 150-acre park. One of the most popular attractions was the Jungle Boat Cruise, which took riders around a lake dotted by those various dinosaur sculptures. However, the park also delved much further into prehistory and mythology than just dinosaurs. Another attraction was the Cave Walk display, a walkthrough attraction based on archaic humans. There was also the Enchanted Forest with various fairy tale creatures, a large water slide that dumped riders into a dam, a real-life tractor ride around the park, and a model of the old woman who lived in a shoe, which famously featured in a commercial for Arnott's Biscuits. The park was built on the site of the colonial property Bungool, and today is occupied by a large golf course. In fact, the first 9 holes of the course actually follow the original path of the park's 9-hole golf course, with some significant improvements made. Unfortunately, other information about the park is very hard to find, although a display in tribute to it is located at the Hawkesbury Regional Museum in Windsor. Dinosaur World in Creswick, Victoria. Speaking of dinosaurs, we have to talk about none other than Dinosaur World. This tiny 4-acre park put the town of Creswick near Ballarat on the map, attracting up to 30,000 visitors every year. Located off the Midland Highway, it featured life-size dinosaur models, a museum, a playground, and a barbecue area. The park was first opened in 1982 by Stephanie and Bill Myers. Bill built the first of the fiberglass dinosaurs himself, and the park initially charged $1.50 for admission. Bill was a textile worker who emigrated from Germany and wanted to create something big. He was inspired by a visit to another dinosaur theme park in Queensland, and set about constructing his dinosaurs and playground piece by piece, the largest construction being a 70-foot Brontosaurus. One of the most interesting aspects of the history of this tiny park, however, was its famous T-Rex sculpture. Yes, it looked like that. In the 1980s, when Bill Myers first constructed the T-Rex, the perception of what a T-Rex looked like to the public was very different. But that all changed around the early 1990s, when dinosaur mania was spawned among the children of the world, in particular by the release of the blockbuster hit Jurassic Park. By that time, the park had been sold to the Plunkett family, and they quickly realized that kids were complaining about the T-Rex's strange egg-shaped head now that the appearance of a T-Rex had become more widely known. The family constructed a second T-Rex head for promotional purposes, but the original sculpture remained famously, hilariously, egg-shaped.
I offer you a nice egg in this trying time.
In 2000, the Plunketts again sold the park to a new owner. However, that owner quickly ran into issues. They could not afford the cost of liability insurance and work cover for the park, and said that it was already in a rundown state. In 2002, the park closed for good, and the only remnants are a shed and the egg-headed T-Rex sculpture, which can supposedly still be spotted from the road nearby. GreenhillsAdventure Park in Victor Harbor, South Australia. Our next park only closed very recently and was a rare example of a fun park in the state of South Australia. GreenhillsAdventure Park was established in 1982 in the coastal town of Victor Harbor, about 82 kilometres south of Adelaide. Founded by Margaret and Bill Mackenzie, the 25-acre park was fairly substantial from its beginnings, with over 20 attractions including go-karts, rock climbing, a wave slide, mini golf, a maze, a flying fox, water slides, and so much more. The park became something of a hotspot of regional South Australia, growing enough to host circuses, jet ski demonstrations, and even South Australia's first ever bungee jump, strung from a crane over the park's lake. The park was considered something of a secret haven, nestled in the Hindmarsh Valley, and a perfect little day trip from Adelaide. The park lasted a substantial amount of time, and the Mackenzies owned the land until 2009, when it was sold to developers who wished to build property allotments on the land. The park would continue to operate for some time as part of the 4-stage development plan, with extra parcels of land gradually being built upon, such as the overflow parking. However, the inevitable did come to pass, as the park closed on the 1st of May 2016 due to significant interest in the first stages of development and increases in water and electricity prices, prompting the new landowners to fast-track the next stages. The park sold discounted tickets to commemorate their last season and auctioned off much of their equipment in June 2016. A housing estate now resides on the land, yet another example of the slow demise of the regional amusement park here in Australia, and it's sad to see a place like this go. Magic Kingdom in Landsvale, New South Wales. Our final park for this video has drawn some fame with urban explorers, as some of its remains still exist in some bushland in Sydney's southwest. Magic Kingdom in Landsvale was just one of several theme parks that dotted Sydney's outer suburbs, many of which I plan to make videos on soon, such as El Caballo Blanco, so stay tuned. But Magic Kingdom remains one of the most famous, opening in the 1970s. Located on Hollywood Drive in the suburb of Landsvale near Liverpool, Magic Kingdom was a relatively small park. It actually had another park right next door as well, Disneyland, which was renowned for its cheap rides and the so-called hillbilly nights at its Hollywood Country Music Club. This park actually salvaged many of the rides that were set to be scrapped after Luna Park Sydney closed its doors following the Ghost Train fire in 1979, and also served as storage for many old carnival horses. Today, there are no remains of Disneyland, as it has been replaced by the Liverpool Golf Club. Magic Kingdom also opened in the 1970s. This was a small 36-acre park featuring over 15 rides, a giant dry slide, 2 water slides, radio-controlled cars, a picnic area, petrol-powered mini boats on a lake, and the Big Shoe. They also introduced bungee jumping in the 1990s, shortly before the park's closure. The park was particularly popular, but due to its size and location in an industrial area, it struggled to remain viable, particularly after Australia's Wonderland opened, absorbing a large portion of Sydney's theme park industry. Shortly after Wonderland opened, the Magic Kingdom closed. Today, Magic Kingdom's land remains empty, with the Big Shoe, the lake, and the toilets still sitting abandoned on the plot. The giant slide also famously stood abandoned for a very long period of time before being removed around 2016. This has made Magic Kingdom a popular place to visit with urban explorers and nostalgic Sydneysiders. The story goes that a major contributing factor to the Magic Kingdom's closure was its location, in close proximity to the floodlands of Prospect Creek, which resulted in frequent flooding. Add that issue to the declining attendance, and the park was certainly no longer viable. There are currently no development plans for the former Magic Kingdom, so the land remains abandoned and derelict, holding the lost memories of the thousands of people who visited the park over the years. Do you have any memories of these parks? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you next time.